Hello and welcome to Just Ride Bikes. I'm David and today I'm riding and reviewing this, the latest generation Giant Anthem Advanced 29er, the company's dedicated pure XC race mountain bike. If you want to emulate Tom Pidcock, well, this is a type of bike you need. And I will leave any gravel bike in a cloud of dust if you want to ride fast off-road. So the Anthem has been Giant's XC race bike since it launched way back in 2006. Hands up if you remember that launch. Yeah, I do, I feel really old now. And it changed a lot in that time as XC racing has evolved and improved and the bikes have generally got a lot better. And this is probably the best version yet. We have a nice lightweight carbon frame. The swing arm is carbon fiber as well to keep the weight super low. About 1700, 1800 grams for a frame without a shock. This entire bike here in a Shimano XT SLX build is 11 kilos for size large with no pedals fitted. But how good is it really? Is it as fast as it actually looks? Well, today in this video we'll find out. We'll go for a ride and do some climbing, descending, cornering, single track, talk about suspension performance and much more. But before we hit a trail, let's dive in and have a closer look. And it's a good looking bike to my eyes, and it's no secret that XC race bikes have been progressing ever closer towards trail bikes in terms of suspension travel and geometry numbers, and this bike definitely takes a good step forward. Not the most progressive, but not super conservative either. And the geometry numbers that stand out for me include a 67.5 degree head angle, so pretty slack compared to 10 years ago. And we have a 470mm reach on this size large, which is a sweet spot for me. I like a 475, 480, but pretty good. And we do have quite a short wheelbase and short chainstays because Giant have ditched their old Maestro suspension design on the Anthem, which had a pair of short links between the frame and rear triangle. And they've gone to a single pivot with the main pivot just down there and a flexi carbon rear end and a carbon fiber linkage driving the rear shock. The key thing here is we are seeing XC race bike go to the rear shock below the top tube, creating space for two bottles, but here we have a single bottle cage. So that is perhaps a limitation. If you're looking at the Anthem as a bike packing marathon bike, you can only fit one bottle. There are a pair, well, one bolt there, where you can probably fit another bottle or just use a hydration pack. So this bike costs £5,000 in the UK, and we have that Shimano Dior XT SLX drivetrain with SLX hydraulic disc brakes and a Fox 34 fork and a Fox rear shock and a dropper seat post, Giant's own dropper seat post, 150mm travel on this bike and a physique and tear saddle. And up front I've gone for an oversized 35mm diameter handlebar, which is aluminium on this bike, and a short stem and foam grips. The 90s are back, baby. And we also have suspension lockout, so full lockout or a sort of climbing traction mode, I guess, and the dropper lever, which is a bit janky, as we said. So those are the main details on a Giant Anthem. Let's hit a trail and see how it performs. So I picked a lovely sunny day for filming today. Need to make the most of it before it disappears. So before I head into the woods, it's worth me adding, I've been riding the bike for about 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks now. And during that time, riding my local trails and also doing a local XC race, which was fun and definitely a shock to the system. I haven't raced in a long time, but it's super fun, super fast course, some really nice technical single track and some flat out fast climbing, and a really good test for the bike because it's a bike designed for racing, so you need to race it to see how it performs in that scenario, and it performed extremely well. So if you are looking for an XC race mountain bike, well, this one definitely delivers what you want from a race bike. But now let's head into the woods and do some fun trails. Okay, let's talk about suspension performance, and I am very impressed with how the suspension works. I'm running about 25% sag in the rear shock for today's trail ride, but when I raced the other day, I ran it down to about 22, 23 just to firm it up a bit. And we have the three-way adjustment on the handlebar from fully open to a halfway compression trail mode, or climbing mode perhaps, and then full lockout, and it operates the shock and the fork as well. Personally, not a massive fan of all these adjustment opportunities, but it is very popular in the XC racing world. And on Giant's top end Anthem, they have the Fox Live valve. So there's some clever technology to adjust the suspension for you on your behalf, but a lot more money and complexity. And I find the suspension is nice and compliant. It's very forgiving on rough trails, and the handles rocks and roots well. Gives a nice smooth ride, gives good traction on tricky little climbs. And it's somewhere, so it's more compliant than the Canyon Lux World Cup, which I found very restrictive when riding off-road, or ultra efficient perhaps, but not as plush and floaty as a Pivot Mach 4 SL, somewhere between those two extremes. And I think they judged it perfectly well for an XC race bike, where efficiency is really paramount if you are actually racing. For general trail riding like today, I found the open mode is sufficient 99% of the time. There's a bit of bob, but not crazy. It's not excessive, and it doesn't feel like you're losing loads of precious energy. But because we have that handlebar remote, I do find myself using it, using the middle setting. Does remove some of the bob, just firms up the compression. So for longer, smoother climbs, I found myself reaching for it, but more because it's there, and using it because it's there rather than feeling I need it. The Anthem does climb very nicely indeed, a very tidy bike on the climbs. 11 kilo weight, what's that, 24 pounds? Big fast rolling tyres, 29er wheels. My fit and position on the bike is pure XC race. Long, low, very much head down, just what you want for racing, and it worked when I was racing the other week. The long reach, the very flat, almost no rise handlebar, quite a short stem as well, and I slammed, well, almost slammed the stem. Gives you that racing position you want. It's not a sit up and beg kind of down country trail bike. It's definitely a head down, full of purpose. Get your power down and smash along the trail as fast as you can. And I like that because it's a race bike. That's how a race bike should fit. Okay, time for some downhill payback. And the bike is surprisingly really good fun on downhill technical trails. It turns really nicely, suspension coping well. A bit more would be nice, but I'm not complaining too much. I love having a fat 2.4 inch tyres on an XC race bike. What I love about XC race bikes is how good they are away from racing, when you're trail riding, going down technical descents. No longer scary, steep, sketchy bikes. Oh, the tree down there. With that slacker head angle, longer reach and a bit more suspension travel, 110 up front from a 34 fork. It's so much better downhill, it's so much more fun. The suspension is so good. So got the bigger hits. And the bike is nimble, it's agile, it turns well at short wheelbase and the short change days. It pivots around corners extremely well. So it's not the most progressive, such an overused word that, isn't it? Not the most progressive XC race bike. But neither is it super conservative. Okay, just taking a quick break. It's so sweaty right now. Catch my breath, and we're nearly at the end of today's route. So I want to share some likes and dislikes with the bike that I've discovered over the last, 6 weeks of riding the bike. First, dislikes. Well, there's only space for one water bottle. You can't fit two. So for longer distance marathon riding or bike packing even, that's a limitation. We have a rat's nest of cables up front, which isn't very pretty, and I'm not really a fan of the lockout for the front and rear suspension personally, but you can leave it open all the time and it works okay really. The dropper lever I'm not really a fan of. Let me show you. It looks very crude. Sorry Giant, could do better, and if I bought the bike I would change that for something more ergonomic, because it's quite tricky when you're riding at speed to operate that lever. While on the front end, I'm not really sure about a 35mm diameter handlebar. Definitely creates quite a bit of stiffness up front, so I would probably change for a 31.8 just to get a bit more vibration damping, and probably go carbon as well. It's not a massive issue, but worth mentioning. This Fizzy and Tear saddle, very, very firm. Something else I would change. And I love the fact we have a dropper seat post, but it's only 150mm drop, which on a size large, I have plenty of space there for a longer dropper seat post. And another issue I found when washing the bike or riding through the rain is water does collect in this sort of swimming pool, a bath down here. So that's something to be conscious of, be mindful of when you're washing the bike especially. Another dislike are the foam grips. They weren't great in the 90s. I have bad memories of them. I'm not really sure they work in 2024. I mean, they're lightweight. I've lost the end caps already, but a bit too fat for me, and on longer rides I didn't find them that comfy at all, so I would change them for a better grip if I'm buying the bike and keeping the bike. But there are lots of likes as well. I think it's a good looking bike. It's definitely good value for money. This model is £5,000, and apart from a few bits I would probably change, not a lot you need to change to make it a race ready package. So good value for money. I know Giant, some people are snobby about Giant in terms of brand appeal, but in terms of what you're getting here, a super lightweight carbon race bike with mostly good equipment. Giant's own carbon wheels, nice wide profile, Maxxis Aspen 2.4-inch tyres, very fast rolling, big volume, nice low pressures, and Shimano mechanical group set. SLX brakes and cranks, and a Dual XT rear mech, so upgraded rear mech, just a bit of showroom flash with a clutch mechanism, 12-speed gear ratios. It works extremely well in a world of electronic wireless shifting and batteries and complexity. The old-fashioned cable, it still works so well, and the shifting, oh my goodness me, oh, that is lovely. Listen to the sound of that. I'm a big fan, and the brakes are good as well. I've always liked the shape of the Shimano brake levers, and I've had no issue with the bite point move around and reach adjustment on that small dial just there. Yeah, it's a good package for sure. Right, a bit more riding to do, and then we wrap up this review. The trail is so overgrown right now. Arms being ripped to pieces by brambles. But what a nice day to be out. The trails are dry, conditions good. I do think Giant could have been bolder with the amount of suspension travel on offer here, because the Scott Spark has 120 front and rear, and it's no worse, no slower as a race bike, but give you a bit more sort of bandwidth and comfort and capability away from racing. Because I know a lot of people, myself included, love XC race bikes, not for racing, but for fast, rapid trail riding, covering ground super quickly on a bike that's not heavy and doesn't have too much travel. And I do like being underbiked. So a bit more suspension travel would have been nice, with no real downside, I think. What I love about the latest breed of XC race bikes is how they manage to retain all that speed and efficiency and agility when climbing and covering ground, but also a lot more fun going downhill or through any technical single track. Just makes it so much more fun when you're bimbling along the trail like I am right now. And of course, we have a dropper seat post. Only 150 travel on this one, but which could be more. But it's better than no dropper seat post. And XC race bikes do have to draw a compromised line somewhere, because yes, they have to match the needs of the pros who are racing them for a living, racing at the Olympics and the world champs. But us amateurs who buy them actually go to the shop and buy a bike like this and maybe use it for racing, but maybe so much more than just racing. It does handle the technical stuff well. It pivots around corners nicely. Nice light steering, short wheelbase and short chain stays give it good cornering poise. Very easy to change direction when you're constantly looking for that smoother line through the roots, or just blast over the top of them. Oh, nice, I love the trail. swoopy and fast and flowy way. Oh, so good. On my head. Nice sweeper. Way, nice. Loads of grip in the corners. And that is the end of that section of single track. Right, time for my verdict on the Giant Anthem Advanced 29er. And in my opinion, if you're actually racing and want a good value for money bike that delivers a low weight and good efficiency and it's just fast everywhere, it's a really good choice. There are a few things I would change if I'm buying the bike, but those are things that are easy to remedy. But the fundamentals of the bike are really good in my opinion. I can't wait to see how it compares to a new Specialized Epic. Hopefully get a chance to ride one of those very soon. And definitely more appealing for me than the Canyon Lux, the World Cup edition. The Lux Trail is definitely more of a down country bike. And for more technical riding, if you're not racing but want a short travel, low weight package, then I do think the Scott Spark with extra travel or the Mach 4 SL from Pivot are probably more enticing options for that style of riding. So it depends on what you're doing. But for racing, yeah, an absolutely fantastic package. I'll put a link to the Giant website down below. If you want to see my review on the Pivot Mach 4 SL, that's up on screen right now. And of course, don't forget to subscribe by hitting that button right there. And do let me know if you want to see more mountain bike reviews here on Just Ride Bikes, or should I set up a new channel just for mountain bikes? Let me know. Anyway, I'm off to finish this ride while the weather is glorious. I'll see you again very soon.